Oh, there we go. Good?
I'm rolling. Rick's rolling. We're all good.
We're good to go. Senator Knopp, what is this walkout truly about?
Well, it's about unlawful, unconstitutional, uncompromising from the Democrat leadership in the Senate. And all session long, they said they wanted to be bipartisan, and they weren't. So the Senate Republicans had a 37-bill agenda. We're the only caucus that published a specific agenda. And the Senate Democrats killed every single thing on our agenda. And then when it came to a discovery of the fact that all the bill summaries were not being done in a lawful way, as per Senate rule and as per Oregon law, Senate Democrats just said, well, we have the votes, we can do what we want. And we said, you actually can't. You have to follow the law and you have to follow the Senate rules. And they didn't want to do that. And so that's what started this. You know, is it about other policy bills? Yeah, it's about 37 policy bills that they killed that were ours. It's about some extreme and unconstitutional bills that they want to pass, absolutely. So it's about a lot of things, but mostly it's about the fact that our districts and our constituents are being disrespected by the Senate leadership killing our entire agenda.
You mentioned a lot of different issues. The walkout started the week that two House bills, 2005 and 2002, were coming up. A lot of people connect the walkout to those two issues. It's about more than those two issues, or were those two issues the final straw for you?
Well, it's about more than those issues. It was actually just an issue of timing, that's when really this discovery was made and confirmed by multiple attorneys that the Senate rules were being violated and the law was being violated as it relates to these summaries.
Seems fifth week now, it's no closer to ending than it was at the beginning. What would it take for you and your colleagues to go back?
So lawful, bipartisan, and constitutional. I've said that over and over again. So we are taking it upon ourselves to try to help resolve this situation by rewriting all the bill summaries of bills that are still in the process. It's about 300 to 350 bills that are still in the process, that are still alive. And so we're doing that to try to help the Senate majority make this session a lawful session as it relates to following Senate rule and law.
Can you make that a little easier to understand for the average Oregonian who doesn't follow the legislative process, and a lot of this is kind of over their head?
Yeah.
They just want to know, can our elected leaders come together and find some common ground? How would you answer that question?
Well, so that's all we've been able and been trying to do is to find common ground and basically make a path toward bipartisanship. And it's the Senate Democrat leadership that has said, no, we want our bills our way, no amendments, and essentially no discussion. And we find that wholly unacceptable because some of the elements of those bills are unconstitutional pretty much on their face and violate the rights of parents to be able to care and love their children the way they want to. And there is no greater gift that a parent has than to be able to guide their child, and yet they don't want to allow that to happen. They would prefer the government step in.
Let's get into the issues then. In House Bill 2002, it seems the big sticking point is abortions for minors under 15 and no parental consent. Where would you be willing to compromise on that issue?
Well, so we've said those, if those bills are amended, that we are willing to essentially work with them, again, lawful, constitutional, and bipartisan. And so...
amended how?
By returning parental rights to healthcare issues for kids.
So unless House Bill 2002 is amended to read, anyone under 15 would need parental consent, the walkout will continue? Yeah,
so there's lots of ways to amend a bill. And what we've said is we're open to amendments. What the Democrats have said is they're not open to any amendments. And so the ones that are willing to be bipartisan and to give in this process is us. And they continue to be the ones that are uncompromising.
You believe then that is a compromise? If the current bill says 15 and under can have abortions, no parental access, where's the compromise in the middle? You want parents to have a say.
Yeah, so there's no question that's that's part of what we want in these bills. And again, all you have to do is try to work to find that bipartisan consensus that can exist. They're just choosing not to. And we are saying bipartisan is absolutely necessary.
Senator Wagner told us earlier today that you and other Republican leaders have not come to them with a specific list of compromises that you want. Is that a fair representation?
I don't think it really is. So, maybe he hasn't gotten that list, but we've said over and over again what we're interested in. I've talked with the governor. I've talked with, other leaders and Democrats about what we want. So I think that's probably a convenient excuse on his part.
On the issue of abortions, OHA and CDC data show that it's exceedingly rare for minors under 15 to either have a baby or have an abortion, fewer than 20 cases in 2021. Why is that an issue that is worth derailing the legislature over this session?
Well, first of all, because every Oregonian matters. And kids that are under 15 deserve to have a parent being involved in those decisions. And the U.S. Constitution gives parents the right to care, custody, and control over health care issues for their kids. And this bill essentially is eliminating that parental right and removing that right. And that's why it's so important.
Given the numbers, you don't have the votes to block it. Have you at all considered letting it go to a vote, stating your reasons for objecting, voting no, and then campaigning on the issue, and if you're able to flip the chamber, reverse the law?
Well, if it was the only issue, that would be one thing, but it's not. Again, this issue is about, are we going to follow the rules and the law? Democrats have said they don't have to. We believe they do, and they will. We believe that they need to be constitutional. There's constitutional problems with some of these bills, as I explained, and we believe they need to follow the Constitution. And we also believe that they need to be bipartisan because the control in the Senate is very close, and we believe that our constituents, their beliefs and values need to be respected as well.
There have been prior Senate Republican and Democratic leaders who say you and Senate President Rob Wagner need to sit in a room and not leave until there's some sort of compromise. Can that happen?
Could happen. I don't think that Senator Wagner and I have sat in a room together by ourselves more than once this session, and that was probably our first meeting this session. There's been staff and other meetings and so on, but we found those meetings to be pretty unproductive, and we just didn't feel like they were leading to anything. And then, of course, we had the issues that came up, and decisions were made that we think not only violate the rules, but violate the spirit of our Senate rules, and our members are objecting to those issues. But again, I'm willing to sit down with anybody to discuss a way to resolve the current stalemate that exists.
Are you and Senator Wagner speaking at all, speaking daily?
I don't think we've had a meeting in about 3 weeks.
We've been told you are meeting with Senator Taylor on behalf of the Democrats. Is that accurate?
So the Democrats have, nominated Senator Taylor to talk about the various issues that exist. And so, yes, those talks have occurred. I've also met with the governor on multiple occasions as well.
What does it say about the institution that the minority leader, you, cannot even meet with the Senate president? And who is that? Is that you or is that him? Or is it both?
I would say that's clearly him because I'm certainly willing to meet.
What does that say about the institution?
Well, there's no question that there's trouble here in the Senate and that it's not working the way it needs to. And I'm hoping that we can resolve the situation.
Earlier today, Democrats were on the steps of the Capitol talking about all these things that are going to die if the walkout continues. Have there been any discussion with Democrats on figuring out ways to get back into session to at least address those issues, or unless you can address the issues on abortion, gender-affirming care, the gun bill, and these other constitutional issues, is that not going to happen?
So we've already guaranteed as Senate Republicans that we'll be back before the session is over to make sure those important budgets get passed here. The real question is, are the Democrats willing to make that same commitment? And it appears as though they are not. That they are so opposed to Republicans having any say whatsoever in this session that they're literally willing to shut down the government and kill every single bill in order to have their way. And I think that tells you all you need to know.
This morning they said at this point, if we negotiate now, it legitimizes a walkout, and it basically tells people you can leave and we'll cave to the demands. Should there have been more of an effort early on before it got to this? Do you feel like you tried to do that with Democrats?
So there's no question that needed to take place earlier, and they refused to do so, and they thought that they could just get around us and get what they wanted without having to actually negotiate and compromise. Turns out they were wrong.
Oregonians seemingly sent a clear message with Measure 113. Though it was not issue specific, they said it seems that they want their lawmakers to show up to work and be in attendance at session. How does the Republican behavior right now square with Measure 113 in your mind?
Well, I think what Oregonians care most about is that people uphold their oath of office. And what I heard when I ran for re-election in 2020 was they wanted Democrats, Republicans, and independents to work together to get good things done for them. And that's what we're trying to do, is have a voice in getting good things done for them. And so while it may seem rocky and it is currently somewhat of a political theater, we believe that ultimately there will be resolution to this, and that Oregonians will get a lot of those good things done that they care about, and that is our goal.
What happens if the Senate remains at an impasse?
The most likely thing that happens is that if the session ends without resolution to this, which the only way that can happen is the Democrats refuse to show up on the last day. Again, we'd come in sooner if we can reach an agreement, a bipartisan agreement. But the most likely scenario would be a special session soon after the session ends on its constitutional day, which is currently June 25th.
I spoke to a Democratic senator and I asked him, are there any conversations about tabling House Bill 2002, House Bill 2005, some of these more controversial bills, and addressing the other stuff? And he said there are those discussions, but I can't say more. Can you shed any light on whether any Democratic leadership has said, we'll put these bills aside today and come back to session tomorrow?
They have not said that to me.
You're certainly hearing mixed things from Oregonians. There are some who want Republican senators to come back. I'm sure you're hearing from some who want you to keep doing what you're doing. Most people want their lawmakers to come together and find common ground and work. If they're concerned that's not happening right now, what is your message to them?
My message to them is the Democrats are currently in charge of this session, and they failed to follow the law, they failed to follow Senate rule, they failed to compromise, and they've failed to be constitutional. It is our job as the majority to hold them accountable. If we won't do it, nobody will, which means they get to do whatever they want. We don't think that's lawful. We don't think that's constitutional. So we're defending the rights of all Oregonians to a fair process, because I think ultimately that's what Oregonians are about. They're about fairness, they're about equity, and that is the values that we're trying to advance by denying this quorum. Because otherwise we are in the building. This interview is happening in the Senate wings. So we're here at work. What we're doing is we're denying a quorum until the Senate Democrats decide that they want to be lawful and constitutional.
Last topic. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you. Can you explain the lawful and constitutional? So the lawful part has to do with the bill summaries. What are they doing that is unconstitutional specifically, and how should that behavior change to become constitutional?
Yeah, so specifically, we think there are multiple bills that violate the Constitution, again, as it relates to parental rights, as it relates to the ability for Oregonians to continue to have input into the lives of their kids. And we think that is a paramount right that parents have. And we're not willing to vote or to just get out of the way so Democrats can do what they want by removing the rights of parents. And we believe those are constitutional rights, and they should be held quite sacred, we think.
And then the lawful part would be the bill summaries. You want the bill summaries to be...
So it is clear that
even though it seems like every bill, it seems like every bill would not pass that readability test if you were to look at them.
So it's about, we think it's about 95% of bills don't pass that test. And so when this was discovered, the real key was, how do you react to that? And the reaction was, well, we don't really care. We have the votes. We can do what we want. And when we vote to pass them, we make them lawful. That's ridiculous on its face because the law is still there. Even if there is no remedy within the law, there is remedy in Senate rule. And Senate rule says that those summaries need to be rewritten. And that is exactly what our staff is doing to try to make them lawful, because the Senate Democrats won't allow the professional staff in the building to do that.
They might have a couple questions. It seems like the walkout, though, is both process related, but it is also very much issue related.
It's both process and policy related. There's no question. Yep.
Steve, Renee?
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just have
And thank you for your time.
You bet.
Right, did a nice job,
You don't have the rest of this recorded?
Yeah,
Yeah,
please do. Yeah.
I'll just stand here.
Do you want the seat?
Sure, if it's not too bad.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted me to ask?
No.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate
Yep.
it. Yeah.
Okay, you're
I got them.
Ooh.
Thanks again, Senator. Going back to, you mentioned you've spoken to the governor. When's the last time that you have?
It's been a little over a week.
And do you feel those are productive conversations with her?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were. So the governor and I have always been able to talk and, to, I think, air our differences in a respectful way. And I think we met 5 times in about a week's period of time. And, I think the governor concluded that it was better for the Senate to try to talk to each other right now to see if we could reach some sort of resolution on these process issues, which she doesn't really control, and then work on some of these budget issues.
That was the next question I was going to ask, that what you thought maybe the governor could do to somehow end this or help you guys come together. Is there something that you could think that she can do to help this situation end? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think encourage both sides to try to reach consensus and compromise.
All right, yeah. What kind of damage are all these walkouts inflicting on the institution, you think, in the long term and even in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, so I've seen many of them. I've participated in some. I've not participated in others. And I'm probably one of the only Republicans who hasn't walked out every time. And I don't take them lightly, but when you have a situation where the majority party wants to essentially operate unfettered, in other words, feel like they don't have to follow the process, the rules, or the law, that's a problem. And so we felt so strongly in the minority that we were willing to risk any political futures we might have in order to defend this principle and defend what we believe our oath of office requires us to do. And so the short-term and long-term ramifications to the institution are that if we are not successful in bringing the Senate back to a lawful operation, I think that has very damaging long-term long-term impact on the people of Oregon, because then you'll just essentially have a legislature that does what it wants to do if they have the votes, and we don't think that's good for the process, and we don't think that's good for the people of Oregon either.
What does this institution, the legislative institution mean to you personally?
Well, it's been my honor to have served in both the House and the Senate. I've served in leadership on both sides. And to me, this is about service. This is about service to the people of Oregon. And we owe it to the people of Oregon to give them the best consensus product that we can come up with. And if both parties don't want to try to reach consensus, that interrupts the ability for Oregonians to have that bipartisan input from essentially all parts of the state. Generally, the rural areas are represented by Republicans. The urban areas are generally represented by Democrats. So in order to bring this state together, we have to find consensus and bipartisanship. And that's part of what this denial of the quorum is about.
Okay. I think Wright had asked some of the questions I had, so I think that's all that I really have for you, and thanks again.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Unless you have anything else?